And then Brad is our, he is our kind of our office manager and our coordinator. So he'll be in here as well. So I guess I should let you know this meeting is going to be recorded. The reason is because there might be people that can't make it today to the live meeting. So, okay. Everybody consenting, I guess? All right, thank you. All right, so go ahead and continue. So Brad is supposed to talk about this one, but I think he's still letting people in.
Got too many things going on at one time.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah, I can do this if you still need to let people in.
I think I've got it under control now.
Okay. So hit the continue button on this meeting is being recorded.
Is it still showing on?
It's showing on our screen, yep.
I hit it, so maybe it's showing on your screen.
Oh, okay.
Not on mine. And so maybe
Okay, I need to hit that. Okay, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Just a second here. There we go. Okay. So as Sonia alluded to a little bit, this ACM program, or Advanced Career Management, is part of the ADVANCE initiative. And ADVANCE is an NSF-funded, faculty-oriented project that we're running here on campus. We started it when the grant was received in 2018. And things really got in earnest got going last year. So we're planning on going through this year and through next year as well. And we're hoping to get an extension to continue beyond that. So we do a lot of things. You may have seen us in Tech Today. We try to run an article every Friday that features something related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, or to faculty career success. Those are kind of the two main areas that we're trying to work in. If you haven't yet, please do follow us on Twitter. I can drop our Twitter handle in the chat here in a few minutes, but I pass the mic over to Patty and Sonia. But the reason you're all here today is because you've expressed some sort of interest in the Advanced Career Management program. And Advanced Career Management is one of the 3 adaptations that we have with Advanced. The other 2 being Advocates and Allies, up here in the green. That program is geared towards equity and inclusion in STEM. We have in the Academy for Responsive Leadership, that is geared towards our deans, department chairs, and center and institute directors, working with them to do capacity building so that they're better prepared to include, support, and empower underrepresented minorities and gender equity on campus. Patty or Sonia, could you take over? I have a few more people to pop into the waiting room.
Sure. So, so ACM is what we're talking about here. So this is to assist associate professors. It's kind of built off of ECM. So this is the next step. And that's why most of you are here. And I forgot to mention earlier, we scheduled this, it's a 2-hour block of time, but the first hour is for the associate professors. And then the second hour, we are going to meet with our senior guides. So hopefully Brad can advance this. I think this is this Patty? Sorry about that.
I can do it.
That's me again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, it's me. So today, we've got a couple of things we wanted to do with you. We wanted to start by talking to you about how the Advanced Career Management Program, or ACM, works. So in that process, we'll go through affinity groups 101, which is kind of just an idea of what these affinity groups are. You may have heard us talk about them in some emails. And then we'll go through the structure of the program so you understand kind of what the time commitments might be, what the expectations from the affinity group members are, and what the expectations from senior guides are. We'll then go into a group activity where you can kind of get a test. It's almost like a brief test run of the affinity groups and how they'll work. And then we'll wrap up with an interest survey, and that will transition over into our senior guide orientation at 2 o'clock. All right, Patty?
I think this is me. Okay, I apologize. Let me introduce you to the Advanced Career Management and how it works. the goal for this, really the goal is to provide support so that associate level faculty can realize a career success and a rewarding career in whatever way that makes sense to you. So in whatever definition of reward makes sense to you, that's what we'd like to help support. But in doing that, what we are trying to develop are peer mentoring groups and really a kind of a culture of peer mentoring. So all of you have had some success. Everybody is at the associate level. Everybody has received tenure. Some of you have just received tenure, so congratulations. But you know, you're now at a point in your career where you can kind of look around, where you can intensify the work that you're doing, where you can perhaps develop new lines of research, where you might be thinking about integrating your teaching and your research more carefully. There are lots of different ways that now that you can take a breath, now that you've had some success, you can think about what you want to do with your career. Some of you are already doing those things and you're driving hard and you just feel like you need to talk to somebody, or you'd like to, you know, get somebody's input on this. And so there are various places you might find yourself in your career, but the goal is to make sure that you have a rewarding career, that you're moving in the directions that you want to move in, and providing these kinds of peer mentoring opportunities is our way of facilitating that. So the components of ACM include these peer mentoring groups. We call them affinity career groups. So you'll be with other people who have chosen the same kind of career track that you have. And we'll talk about the different kinds of career tracks that are available, but you'll be with people who are essentially facing the same kinds of things. So you'll be able to share things with them. Each affinity group will have a senior guide. And by senior guides, we chose this name rather than a mentor, because you're mentoring each other. And really, the senior guide is a full professor who's part of the group, who's going to talk about their experiences, who will share their interests and concerns. So they're guides to thinking through what you want to do with your career, to tapping into or at least identifying resources, and to trying to plan things and reflect on how things are going. So we call them senior guides. We have two groups of them. One are the people who will be part of your group, and the other is a group that is in support. They will be available for one-on-one talks if you'd like to do that. We'll also be tapping them for perhaps panels or discussions about particular topics, and you may see us advertise some of those things as we go through the semester. The ACM team, and that's me and Sonia and Brad, will provide some structure. So it isn't a matter of getting into a group and saying, well, I don't know, what do you want to talk about? We will provide you with some prompts, some questions, some ways of orienting your discussion for each meeting that you have. We will also provide readings, and those will be related to the topics that we suggest. Some of the readings are actually research studies, and so you can look at how these particular topics have been studied. But some of them are very easy to digest ideas about how to go forward. There's also activities. A lot of these have to do with helping you reflect on and plan and identify what you need to be doing, but some activities for you and for your groups. And then we have some videos, largely videos drawn on panels and discussions that we've had, and some of them feature some of our senior guides. Talking about their experiences, talking about their advice. So those videos are also tied to some of the topics that we suggest. So you have lots of materials that you can look at before or after or during the time that you meet with your groups. A lot of structure here. And then finally, and I think this is probably, you know, one of the most helpful things that we can provide for you, Brad will schedule your meetings. So Brad actually will go into everybody's calendar, find some available times, contact all of you so that you can decide what time would work, and then set that up for you. So he's our superpower here. So that's another way in which the advanced team will be supporting your groups. Just a quick note on how this mid-career mentoring model works. a lot of this work happens on the individual level. Your career is your career. So it isn't as though we're going to say, oh, you have to do this or you have to do that. But what we find in the literature is that the more kind of intentional you can be, the more you reflect and assess what your opportunities are, the more you know or you identify explicitly the kinds of goals that you have, the more successful you can be. Obviously, identifying resources and, tapping into opportunities, recognizing, issues or obstacles is important. But it's really this kind of reflection and assessment process that's going to move you along. There are lots of ways in which you need departmental and institutional level support. And that's part of how having discussions with other peers, having a senior guide available to you can help you identify those kinds of things. And we'll also be following your discussions in progress so that, we can kind of highlight how at the department level and institutional level, Michigan Tech is helping to support you as well. So mid-career mentoring works when you are able to engage in these kind of reflective planning processes and able to tap into the kinds of resources that will help you move forward.
So Patty introduced you to the idea of the different groups, some of the components in ACM. I'm going to get into it a little bit more here. We have 3 types of groups that we're going to put people in based on their interests that they express. We'll have a short survey and you can let us know what those are. And I will cover what those are on the next slide. But we do intentionally create groups that are from across campus. So we don't try to make it groups that are just within a department. And some people wonder about this, but what we found last year is that people really appreciated meeting people across campus, finding out how things are done differently in different units. And they found this to be quite supportive. So please keep an open mind if you came to this thinking that your affinity group would be within your own unit. We usually have, as Patty said, 3 to 4 people, associate professors in a group. I think one time we did 5. So it kind of depends on, how many people express interest in a certain group and where we can put them. And we have 1 senior guide per group that will lead the group throughout the year. But we also have several, and these are all full faculty members, full professors, the senior guide, and then the support senior guides, who the support guides will be available to each group for additional input. So groups can decide they want, information about a certain topic, and we will go to our support guides and try to find some help for the groups, and the group can invite them to their meetings, or we'll have other ways, other mechanisms to have the support guides participate in this. We are asking groups, just like for ACM, groups are being asked to meet at least 3 times a semester. Once 3 times in the fall semester, 3 times in the spring semester. And so we will start pretty soon. We will put the groups together, and we will hopefully get groups to start their meetings in October, perhaps the end of October, and have 3 meetings this semester already. The groups will have these discussion topics. So for each meeting, we will create themes that the group can discuss. We'll be providing prompts on those themes, and I'll get into that a little bit more later as well. But for this semester, our first meeting is going to be planning. The second meeting theme is prioritization. And the third meeting theme is networks. And as we said before, our coordinator helps you schedule the meetings, so you don't have to kind of worry about that so much. You just have to kind of provide your schedules and when you want to meet roughly, and he will help you schedule that. And the meetings will be held virtually, given the pandemic, until kind of further notice. So these are the 3 types of affinity groups. You can think about which one you'd be most interested in. So in terms of a career path, would you be most interested in finding out what are some different ways that you can do leadership. So by leadership, we don't mean just, becoming a chair or a dean. There's leadership opportunities in a lot of different ways. It could be leadership at your associations, your disciplinary associations. It could be leadership in other ways on campus than the traditional career path. So this is kind of a really open track when we talk about leadership. It's a very broad array of possibilities. Some people would like to continue with research and perhaps enhance their reputation, or study kind of different routes they can take research-wise. And so that's another grouping that we make based on interest. And then the last one is research and teaching excellence. So this is looking at both of those aspects of the career. This is for people that want to kind of achieve excellence in both research and teaching in their career paths as associate professors and into full. Okay, next slide. So here's a little bit more on the guiding questions and prompts. So we did learn from our first year, our pilot year, and we were asked to provide more structure. So even though we envisioned this as being directed by the people in the group, what they want to do, and we still, would like you to do that as much as possible, we're also providing some structure so that you can use these elements if you want. So we have some guiding questions. You can use those throughout the entire year. So these are typical, these are like the questions that you find in ECM, the prompts that the mentors get and guide you through the discussion. And so those are going to be available on the website. You can access them anytime during the year if you want to use those. But then, as I said before, we're going to create prompts for each meeting. And the prompts will be a set of probably 1 or 2 videos, 1 or 2 activities, and 1 or 2 very short readings. And this is not intended to be homework. So most of them, some of the activities do take some time, but most of these are very short, and you could do them at the beginning of the meeting if people don't have time to do homework. And we're not expecting you to do all of them. We're just expecting you to kind of pick and choose according to what you would prefer. So it's really up to the group. This is just to kind of help you along. And I had mentioned the 3 themes for this semester. We have not yet chosen our themes for next semester. So if you want to give us input on that would be helpful, and we'll let you know what those are later. And this is the advanced website, the website with the prompts and the guiding questions. So I don't know, Brad, can you copy and paste that into the chat? And we do have a question in the chat. Will the slides be sent out to attendees? And Brad said yes, he will send those out. And then the last bullet, this is really your group. Once we put you in groups, you should drive where you want to go with your group. So we are just providing this to give you some possible, prompts if you need them. But generally speaking, we'd like you to, figure out kind of what you want to be doing and use the prompts as they're helpful. And if you want to go in a completely different direction, that's fine as well.
So as Sonia and Patty have both mentioned, there will be some support from the advanced office through all this. We've talked about scheduling already, but another big bonus to joining the Affinity groups is that we can provide free coffee. Now, granted, it's going to be a little bit challenging and a little bit different than the way we did it last year. We still will be able to do this. The way it's going to work is you would have to come see me in the Advanced Resource Center before your Zoom meeting if you're on campus, and I can give you a gift card to go over to the library cafe and get some coffee. We can deal with all the logistics of how that'll work and what we can or possibly can't do for those who are off campus as we progress here. We'll be providing senior guide support, so that'll involve a short training after our meeting here. We're going to have regular check-ins with the senior guides to make sure that they're getting everything that they need. And we'll also be providing them with several infographics that we've designed that kind of give them some information on how to help facilitate effective group discussion. And then finally, there is a short feedback form that we have. And if you could if we could get the groups to fill that out at the end of each meeting, it would be extremely helpful because we're going to regularly check this. And we're also going to be checking in with each of you. at least once a semester, Patty and Sonia and myself will jump in to one of your meetings, and we'll just check in for 10 or 15 minutes, see how things are going, see what we can do. It's kind of our way of being responsive to your needs as we go through.
Okay, yeah, so we're ready for any questions before we move on to, we do have a video and an activity next, but we would like to pause here. We went over a lot of information, so what are some of your questions? Just kind of jump in, or you can maybe put it in the chat if you like.
This is what happens in my classes too.
Okay, so we have a question in the chat. How many participated last year? Last year we had 3 groups, 2 that were on the quote leadership track and 1 that was in research intensive. I think it was a total of about 13, 14 people. Can't remember off the top of my head. Does that sound right, Sonia?
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
Sorry, yeah, I was muted. Yeah, so it was a good year. 3 groups. We piloted it and kind of learned from it, and we're certainly hoping. We do have some groups continuing from last year, and we might add some people to those groups, but we will also create new groups this year.
We do. We have people out of 2 of our 3 groups from last year who are interested in continuing, and both groups have said they are more than happy to bring new people in and get them up to speed on how affinity groups work and why they like them. I don't want to steal too much from the next slide with that.
Let me say as well that last semester was a very unique kind of experience for all of us, but some of the groups continued to meet when we went online because of the COVID crisis. And the groups pivoted so that they were addressing career issues in the context of that crisis. So it just showed us that these groups, people can use them to address the things that are happening, in your career that you're trying to deal with, and you can provide support for each other. So that was an experience last year where yeah, there are obviously generic things that you can talk about, but the groups were able to pivot and talk about what was happening at the moment, how that was impacting their career plans, and the groups turned out to be quite supportive that way. At least I think there were 2 of them that continued to meet online when we went online last semester.
Okay, any other questions?
All right, we've got another one in the chat. Has mid-career burnout been brought up?
That's certainly a topic that's in some of the readings that we've made available in the past. I'm not sure how much each group discussed that, but certainly if you have topics you like to discuss, I mean, that could be a theme for, the spring. We have 3 meetings in the spring. That could certainly be a theme, managing the stress and the burnout.
We have quite a bit of literature on burnout. It's one of those topics that comes up as soon as people start researching mid-career. So we can, all of the literature, by the way, is available. We have quite a bit of resources that way. So both mid-career burnout and kind of people hit a doldrums. Not burnout per se, but there's a sort of a lethargy sometimes. You've been doing this for a long time, and you may, not feel as passionate. And so those 2 topics are well represented in the literature that we have, and we can certainly provide you some resources on that.
Yeah, we're here kind of to provide a support role for what you need to talk about. So one thing that you can do is tell your senior guide, we'd like to explore this topic. We can provide some support guides to talk to your group perhaps about how they got themselves through that burnout. So that's always a possibility. Okay, maybe just one more question if anybody has one before we move on.
Can I say as well, that we can also support the opposite of that. We have people with just driving ambition who are making a lot of progress and want to keep going. And when you're driving like that, having some support, being able to talk in a sort of a safe space about what you're doing and what you want to do and how things are going is really very helpful. So we can manage the whole spectrum of where you might find yourself on mid-career.
Okay, I think it's kind of quiet, so maybe we should go on. So what we have here is we have a video from actually part of one group. So this group is one of the groups that decided they do want to continue. And it's a very short clip where 3 of them are going to tell you a little bit about what they value from the group that they were a part of and that they're continuing in. So pay attention, because what we're going to do afterwards is have you discuss a little bit in some breakout groups. We'll give you a few minutes to discuss. But go ahead and roll that, Brad. Thanks.
Hang on. Got you at the start too late.
I think it was really beneficial because, you know, I did not have a mentoring program before, and so I wasn't really sure from the format. But I think this is a really good method so that we find out, especially with a senior leader, what things we need to do.
Also didn't have a mentor as part of the ACM program, so it was really nice to step into something that was somewhat structured, thinking about the next phase, but also with a bunch of people who had similar but not identical career goals. And so it was good to hear what people were doing towards those, and also to hear the questions that everyone had, you know, about the things that matter, and things that matter differently for going up for full versus going up for tenure.
So the challenges of being an associate professor is that, unlike getting tenure, where you're pretty much getting your research program going, making sure you're doing a good job teaching, graduating PhD student, you know, things like that are pretty much the same across the board. The avenues that you can take are really wide open. So you could become just a great researcher and just really, really focus on your personal research program, and that could be a great career. You could go the leadership track. You can start to really pour yourself into university of professional service. And so there's so many different things, and it can be very confusing about, okay, what does it mean? Do I have to do all these things? What are the challenges I have there? And so just having people on the same page as you with where you are in your career is just really valuable to have those conversations and realize that, okay, you know, we're all doing okay, and we're all, you know, I think where we need to be, and having that, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Satisfaction, you know, with where we're at, rather than always worrying about saying yes to everything because we have to think we have to become the superstar. Okay, we had a question come up during the video in the chat, and they wanted to know, can we explore all 3 affinity groups?
Yeah, I don't know if we have an answer to that. You can write, if you're not sure yet, you can write in the survey that you're interested in more than one. I mean, if you want to put all 3, that's fine. We did have somebody, I think last year, who did move groups. They decided, you know, that they had chosen the wrong one. So you can, you know, as long as it's still somewhat the beginning of the year, you can maybe try one, and if you realize that's not for you, you'd rather try another group, we certainly can move you. So I don't know if that answers the question. Maybe Patty would want to chime in here.
That's one of the reasons that we have, for example, the senior guide support group. So perhaps you're in a group, I mean, it's not that it's going badly, but you're starting to, it makes you think, differently about what you're doing. And perhaps you'd like to meet with a senior guide and talk about it. So our support group, those are people that you can talk one-on-one. You can explore some of those things. Maybe you decide you'd like to go in a different direction, and we're not, rigidly going to regiment these groups. So, as we said last year, somebody did change groups. So, it's a matter of asking the group, but, you certainly could do that. But we do have these senior guides you can talk to one-on-one if what you're thinking about suddenly, you're seeing other opportunities, or you're starting to think differently. That's fine. Let's talk to somebody about it. So this program is about supporting your career satisfaction and developing a rewarding career in whatever way that makes sense to you. And so that's what we'd like to support. So we have a number of ways of doing that. We'll work with you.
Yeah, one thing you might think about, we're in year 2 of the grant. The grant runs 3 years, so we can at least guarantee another year. So you could do one group this year, switch to another type of group next year, and we're hoping to institutionalize this afterwards. So hopefully it will continue, and we are leaving it open to having people decide to continue past 1 year. Although we're signing you up essentially for 1 year. When you sign up with us, you're signing up for this year, but then you get to decide later. Okay, so I think we're ready for the breakout groups. Okay, so we're going to put you into breakout groups randomly. So we're in this presentation, we're using that video we just showed you somewhat as a prompt for you to kind of reflect. And we want you to think about these questions that kind of go with that video. They were talking about some things ways they benefited. And so discuss with each other why you're interested in joining the affinity groups, what you think you might want to get out of this experience. And also, in case people were shy earlier in terms of asking their questions, the group can also identify some additional questions that weren't answered yet. So I'll just pause and see if we have any questions on what you should be doing in the breakout group. Is everybody clear on that? And so I think what we will do is Brad's going to assign you here, and we will give you 10 minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. I'm not sure if we can go the full 10 minutes because we want to leave some time for the survey, but at least 5 minutes, and we will bring you back and we'll talk about it as a whole group. So Brad, do you want to create, we still have a couple more things to do, so maybe if we can just share quickly, I'll just share my group, what my group talked about, and maybe 1 or 2 other people can quickly share what their groups talked about. So my group, they were noting how resources, when you get to associate professor level, you don't have some of the research funding that you get when you're an assistant professor. And also they talked a little bit about the teaching that, although they value teaching, often on campus, that there's not that sense that teaching is valued. So there was kind of some concern about that. So probably in each group, I am assuming that you identified some themes that you would probably talk about in these affinity groups and explore it further. You just had a few minutes to explore it here, but you would probably explore it further as a group. So anybody want to share just quickly what they talked about in their groups?
I can share what we talked about. It was a small group of 3, but we mainly talked about leadership and how there's lots of different paths of leadership, not just academic, and some concerns about moving into the leadership role and how that may change your research productivity and possibly your relationships with your colleagues. That's something that I'd be interested. And we also talked a little bit about the time management involved in balancing all of these leadership roles if you still are going to have an active research program, things like that.
Okay, thanks. Maybe 1 other person and then we'll continue.
I think we kind of had a similar discussion trying to determine what those groups might focus on. And I think generally speaking, research and and teaching are two areas that that we probably all enjoy most. But wondering, for myself anyway, where the leadership group actually heads, especially when it comes to, say, heading academic programs um, and uh, and balancing administrative work.
So last year we had 2 leadership groups. We did have quite a bit of interest in leadership. I'm not sure I understand your question. So, oh, you're thinking about leadership, programmatic leadership rather than like as a chair.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if a group was interested in that, we could either form a group mainly based on that, or they could discuss it. And I think the leadership, you know, your group, even if you're put in leadership group, you can always, of course, talk about balancing it with other things. I mean, you know, it depends on the people in the group, what topics you want to cover. So that's certainly a topic I think that could be covered. Does that help you, Trish, understand that?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, and any other questions, because I did ask you to talk about any additional questions, any other questions that came up in the groups that we haven't covered before we have you fill the survey out?
I have one question, Sonia. Maybe I'll share it here. With these 3 different affinity groups, does this imply that there's some openness on the part of administration in terms of the promotion process to full professor being weighted in different kinds of ways towards different areas of the promotional package, where teaching might a focus on teaching might be something that would be valued at a higher level in the promotion process, or if there was significant leadership that was being shown, that would be raised at a certain level for the promotion process to full professor, or is it still very research heavy in terms of the ways that that promotion
That's a good question. I don't know if I have an answer. Patty might chime in here, but that's come up. I think that some units are still very, very traditional in terms of, you know, promotion to full, you have to show the research. And so that's something that can be discussed in the groups, and we can also get some input from some of the support senior guides for your group. We are trying to get this discussion to be a wider discussion, that perhaps you need to consider, you know, different things when you're looking at promotion to full. But we also, in these groups, another point of discussion is how to prepare your package to kind of emphasize, you know, prepare your package in the best way, even if they're mostly looking for research. You can prepare your package in a way that, you know, emphasizes why this is important and so forth. So some of it is, yes, we need to get some units to be a little more flexible, but some of it is also how you know, present yourself, how you promote yourself. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
In talking together with each other, you know, sometimes you just feel like there's no wiggle room whatsoever. It's got to be this or it's not going to count. And I think talking with each other gives you an opportunity to really think about, how would this work? I mean, in what ways am I doing some things that, you know, really are part of what's going on here, or at least inform you so that the next time there's a discussion in your unit, you can bring some of these things up because you've talked about them. So I think sometimes there's just so much pressure about, you know, it's so rigid and this is all that matters, makes you kind of think in a tunnel way. And talking with others can really be helpful, and thinking things through, reflecting on what's important to you, and, you know, recognizing opportunities, thinking differently about what you're doing.
So just to add to that, another tip is a lot of the guides will tell you, if you are doing teaching or you're doing service, find some way to make that a research paper. You know, so this double, kind of thinking about how to double up is kind of a tip. But if you have, so we're short on time, so if you have additional questions, please send them to Brad, BA.Wells@mtu.edu, and we'll try to get back to you on those questions. But let's go ahead and move to the survey, and he'll explain the survey. So this is where you can indicate to us which affinity group you're interested in.
Okay, so I'm going to launch a quick Zoom survey. It's 2 questions. If you don't wish to participate in the affinity group program, you just have to check no on the first one. You don't have to do anything to the second question, or you can completely ignore the poll. It's totally up to you. If you're interested, you can choose up to 3 options on question 2. That would be all 3 groups. And I'll leave the poll open for about 5 minutes, and then we'll close it up and transition over to the senior guide portion of this event. If you have questions during this time, feel free to email me, feel free to drop them in the chat, or go ahead and unmute your mic and turn it on. We'll all be here listening.
Before people leave, I just want to thank everybody for coming. Appreciate your participation.
Yes, and senior guys, please stay for the next portion. Yes, thanks so much.